Sometimes it's the deals that you don't do that make you the most money. A couple years ago, I was really focused on developing large, more like wellness communities, and I decided to move on from that because the timing just wasn't right. I'm Meg, I'm the CEO of CA South. We're a real estate development company based in Nashville, and we've round tripped over 300 million in mixed use projects. I have made the mistake of being too soon in my career. When I first got to Nashville, I focused on ultra luxury modern homes, and the Nashville market was not ready for that yet. If I was doing that now, when all these Californians and New Yorkers now live in Nashville, I would have made millions of dollars doing that. But I brought something from California in 2015, and it frankly just was a total flop because the market was not there. You could do all of the right things and do the right strategy at the wrong time and completely fail. That is one of the reasons why I had to slate something that I completely fundamentally believe in, but I know it's not the right time. I've found if you're desperate or you have so much self-conviction around your own opinions and you're not really willing to look at what people really need and want, that you'll end up burying yourself. I tend to feel like I have good taste, right? I love design. I've worked with amazing architects over the years. I feel I have good taste. Everybody thinks they have good taste. And the reality is that if what you're doing is so cool, but it's not what the market wants and it's not what's needed and wanted, and that's that time and place, then you're not going to be able to sell it and you will flop. And it won't matter how cool your design is or what product you're offering if it's not needed and wanted. And that is something that it takes being humble and it takes real market observation. You can have your own beliefs and integrity in what you're doing, but it needs to be reflective. If you want to be successful and be able to sell something, you have to be able to not let your own ego or your own opinions get in the way of what the market is telling you. And so even though I think that affordable wellness communities right now are super amazing and would be so cool and everyone should have a cold plunge, it doesn't mean that it works at this time and place. And so there will be a time and place for that. But as hard as it is, I've had to move on from that and focus on other ventures that actually work. You have to do a lot of real observation, and surveying is a great technique to really see what people need and want. Obviously, I work in real estate, so you can look at comparable things that people are doing. If every single building is Home Depot finishes that super Midwestern developers are just throwing up without thinking, and there's some crazy architectural masterpiece that some family office investor that's not motivated by money built and it doesn't have to make money, there's a medium in between there, and you have to just find that correct medium. But for me, I just make sure that the price point is real because I build a product that's supposed to be accessible to many people or many investors. And I have to be really aware to be like, okay, I don't want to be the Four Seasons, but I'm not just doing what everyone else is doing on a commoditized basis. So it's just about finding that balance and doing it in a way that's not risky until you find that balance. So here's some advice about when you know to walk away from a deal. It's really important when you're launching any new project or starting any new venture really to set aside your own biases and look at the data and do the actual research. In real estate, it's really easy. You have comparables, you have market trends, you have demographic studies. Anybody can look at Zillow and see the value of a property, even if you're an amateur investor. When I first started, it was so easy for me to fall in love with a modern home I wanted to develop or project and just go, oh, this is what I want to do, so I'm going to build it. Unfortunately, if you want to make money and get investors to back you and have a successful track record, you have to make sure that you're validated by actual research and a real business plan. And that's something that takes your own affinity for the project and setting it aside and really, really doing your own research on whatever it is that you're pursuing. So look at the reality of the current market. As a real estate developer, it's extremely hard right now with inflation and interest rates where they're at, financing costs to make anything work. Just because I think a project's beautiful doesn't mean it's going to be the right time. And it's very important to align your timing with your project. So it could be an amazing project that you're in love with and it'll be some passion you pursue. It just might not be right now, and that's okay. And you need to figure out what it is that's needed and wanted now, because there's always an opportunity in every market. Like in Nashville right now, there's so many apartment buildings because institutional investors want to build apartments. They're good for cash flow, they're good for tax reasons, but everybody wanted that for so long that the market is now saturated for probably over 2 to 3 years. And what's hilarious is people continue to build them. And it doesn't matter whether or not the market is what the market's telling us. They're not going to be successful. It's going to take them a very long time to recover those costs, but people just continue to build them because that's what they want to invest in. And there's a huge disconnect between what's a really good investment and what people want. And so I found that I tend to be extremely data driven. That's definitely made us successful. We've had to pivot a lot more. We don't do the exact same business model over and over again for 10 years. We kind of look where the puck is going and pivot our business model accordingly. And I think that's how we've succeeded and achieved such high returns as opposed to just continuing to do the same thing no matter what the market's telling you. So finally, you really need to hone in on what works and lean into that. Throughout my career, it was very easy once I became successful because I had a lot of different institutional investors and a lot of people that wanted to invest in Nashville. And it was very easy to get distracted and go into a bunch of different types of building. But I'm actually now going back to where I started 10 years ago, doing the thing that worked. For an example, I've developed a product that is short-term rental, which is basically condo units that people can buy and cash flow when they're not using them. It's a really great update to what would be a timeshare or a condo hotel that's very investor and owner friendly and not management intensive. And it appeals to a lot of people that want to own real estate but don't want the headache of owning real estate and don't want to pay a bunch of fees to a big hotel chain. And so this is something I've just developed over the last 10 years. And it's funny to me because I remember my board being like, why don't you just do that? You're so good at that. You've been doing that. That was the very first thing I ever did in real estate was a condo building that allowed me to short-term rent. It was wildly successful. And then I got very distracted by $100 million deals with institutional investors that don't make as much as where I started. And so I've now leaned into that business model. That's just an example. In real estate, people have a million different niches and focuses, or any industry. And you have to remain undistracted, have the discipline to say no to those deals that aren't the thing that worked. I'm Meg with CA South. And if you want to learn more about what we're up to, watch this next video.